Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Hello and welcome to episode 172 of the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I'm Tim Robertson, the host of the podcast, and also the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers collects and analyzes observations of various solar system bodies and associated phenomenon, and publishes detailed reports concerning these bodies in its quarterly publication, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. This podcast depends upon donations from you, our listeners, to keep it going. If you do enjoy what you hear on the podcast, you can help donate to it via Patreon. You can start off by giving as little as $1 a month. If you feel even more generous, $5, you receive early access to the podcast before it goes public. For a monthly donation of $10, you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35 a month, you receive producer credits on the podcast. You can help us out by going to www.patreon.com/Observer's Notebook. If you'd like to join the ALPO, membership begins at only $22 a year. For more information, find us at www.alpo-astronomy.org. And you can also find us on Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy. And the Observer's Notebook also has a Facebook page as well. Just search for Observer's Notebook. And if you enjoy what you hear in the podcast, please subscribe. That way you'll never miss another episode. And now episode 172 with Keith Spring, and we're talking about the October Annular Solar Eclipse. Enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to this edition of the Observer's Notebook podcast. And today we're talking eclipses. And with me, we're talking to Keith Spring, the ALPO Eclipse Coordinator. Welcome back to the podcast, Keith.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for bringing me back again.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into it, why don't you just give everybody a little background information, because it's been a while since you've been on.
It has been a little while. My name is Keith. I've been observing eclipses most of my life. My first eclipse was the total lunar eclipse back in October 27th, 2004. That eclipse has really shaped how I handle astronomy and how I observe. And since then, I've viewed 5 total lunar eclipses, photographed 3 of them, had some clouds for the others. But I would like to say that I know lunar eclipses very well, and I look forward to seeing more solar eclipses here in the future.
Great, and we do have a few coming up.
And yes, we do. We have 2 great solar eclipses coming over America, and these are, you can't miss some events. You need to see these.
Okay, so why don't you talk about the October Annular Eclipse?
All right. Well, October 14th, 2023, we will have an annular eclipse that starts on the west coast of America and then cuts through Central America, down through Texas, over Panama, then exits over Brazil. Reviewing this eclipse, as with anything to do with the sun, we need to start with the safety discussions. It always feels redundant talking about
but there's always
safety means, but
there's always somebody every year that doesn't listen to the warnings.
There's always somebody. So as always, it's a solar eclipse. It involves the sun. Please wear your safety glasses. Please wear the solar glasses or have your solar filters for your telescopes. It is an annular solar eclipse, but even at the center line, even under full annularity, you have 4 or 5% of the sun still uncovered, and that is enough to do damage. So be careful, use proper solar glasses and filters, and have a great time with the eclipse.
Yeah, now this is not like a total solar eclipse where when the sun is covered, you can whip off your glasses or pull a filter off your telescope and take a look at the sun.
Correct. Since the moon has a variable distance from the Earth, sometimes it's closer, sometimes it's farther away. When it's this close to the Earth, it doesn't completely cover the sun when the moon comes between the Earth and the sun. So you get a ring around the moon when you look up into the sky at it, and that's in part what an annular eclipse is. It's like a total solar eclipse, but the moon it's too far away and too small, and it doesn't completely cover the solar disk when you look. So do exercise caution when viewing it. You can't just look at it like a total solar eclipse. With those, the moon's completely covered in a total solar eclipse, and it's safe to look at. But an annular eclipse, you still have 4 or 5% of the sun's disk uncovered. So, yes.
Now, with the total solar eclipse, it gets dark.
Yes, it gets
Does it?
very dark.
What happens at mid eclipse on an annular?
Ooh, good question. I have never personally been to an annular eclipse,
okay,
but I can speak to how things were on the 2017 total solar eclipse at about 5% coverage, which is approximately, or 5% uncovered, so 95% covered, which is about what we will get with this annular eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it's dark enough to where it's almost twilight everywhere, and you should start hearing bugs and all kinds of ground critters that come up at sunset about that time, and it's dim enough to make a difference brightness wise, but it will not get completely dark like a total solar eclipse.
Yeah, I witnessed an annular eclipse, I don't know, about 10 years ago here in California. And at mid-eclipse, I mean, the sun was only probably 25, 30 degrees up from the horizon. So it looked like it was going down. But, I didn't notice, like, from a total eclipse, the birds singing and, the wind picks up, the sundowner winds pick up. I didn't notice any of that with the annular. And it was the sky was a weird color.
Yeah.
It wasn't blue. It wasn't red. It was just had kind of a musky shade to it. It's kind of interesting.
Yes. And again, that's pretty much what you should expect. Almost a total solar eclipse, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But annular eclipses are more rare and in some ways more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a good quality solar filter and nice, very high magnification, a good thing to do is to image the edge of the lunar disk as it silhouettes against the sun. You can get some nice crater features.
Okay.
And that is something that would look great in pictures. Mm-hmm. It's always great to try new imaging techniques like that. Most people that I've seen try to get full disk images of solar eclipses. For total eclipses, you want to see the solar flares or the corona of the sun. You won't really be able to see that with an annular eclipse. Mm-hmm. But what you will be able to see is the silhouette of the moon over the sun.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, decently high-powered equipment to view it is helpful. But at the same time, I can't stress enough the importance of being able to move your equipment very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I would say be able to disassemble, move, and set up again within an hour. Because with what I've found...
Yeah, you're talking weather problems.
Weather problems, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of... the weather's unpredictable. Like today here, it was This is Florida. It was storming. It was just thunderstorming and lightning 2 hours ago, and now it's blue sky.
Oh my!
So,
well, that's Florida.
That's a Florida problem, as are many things. But
yes,
but with solar eclipses, the duration of the annularity on the October 14th eclipse is only 5 minutes and 17 seconds. So if you're set up and you're ready, and it's an hour before the eclipse, and some clouds move in, and you know they're not going to go away, but 10 miles down the road, you think you can get some clear sky, go for it.
Yeah.
I've always been a strong advocate for using high-powered camera lenses, and that is something I'm going to be trying out more for this eclipse. Is I'm going to be trying to get a higher-powered telephoto lens to see how that works. I've had good success in the past using tracking mounts for solar eclipses, but I don't think they're as necessary.
No.
So many people swear by tracking mounts, and I agree they're great, but to be able to pick up, move, and put down again that quickly, if you have to repolarize your mount in the middle of the day for an eclipse, that's really tough to do. And
past solar eclipses, I've basically used a 300 millimeter lens on my camera with a solar filter wrapped around the end.
Right. I used a 250 millimeter lens for the 2017 eclipse, and that worked wonderfully.
Yeah, that's all you need to do.
Yep, tripod, stabilized lens worked great.
If you're spending time to polar align, you're wasting time.
Oh, yeah. And the longest exposure I took on the 2017 eclipse was 4 seconds, I believe, at 100 ISO. So the brightness, I would say, is relatively equivalent to a full moon. Not quite, but that's in the ballpark. So if you can view the full moon without a solar filter, that is, you should be able to view the solar eclipse with a filter. And for total solar eclipse, of course, you remove the filter for the brief period of the total portion of the eclipse. But for annular eclipses, you have to keep the filter on.
Right.
And since the filter's on, you will need to do slightly longer exposures, but I expect you should be getting great pictures with quarter second or faster imaging. The lens I'm trying to get is the 600 millimeter. I want to see if I can zoom in a bit more there.
Okay.
Found a great deal on that. I'm not sure if I got it or not.
Yeah.
But I did. So okay, there we are. Update. I am going to be testing a 600 millimeter lens on the October 14th eclipse.
Yeah, and it's a good idea to set up your hardware now. And test it out, make sure it works. I mean, it's an annular eclipse, so just put the filter on your camera lens, go out and take some shots, and just have your learning curve now instead of October 14th.
Yes, practice. View the normal uncovered solar disk. Just practice on that. I've found that a lot of autofocus systems nowadays are actually able to autofocus on the solar disk, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Saves a lot of time. And if you autofocus on the disk when it's mostly uncovered, and then switch into manual focus and just leave it alone. That's what I did for the 2017 eclipse. Keeps the sharp focus. You don't have to worry too much about refocusing. And it's so much quicker and so much safer than trying to, in the moment, scramble for the focus ring.
So what type of observations do you want sent to you following the eclipse?
Oh, good question. As always, any normal solar observing equipment would work well for this annular eclipse. hydrogen alpha filters are great. High magnification images of the edge of the moon, but that could require a large telescope, maybe with tracking, depending on how zoomed in you want to be with those. But overall, full disk images are great, and practically all of America is going to get a serious partial out of this at the very least. So even if you can't travel to the center line of the of annularity, take pictures of the partial eclipse. Not many people send in images of the partial eclipse.
Oh, really?
I think it's kind of strange. So many people see the partial and not. I mean, 1 billion people are under the partial section. That's a lot of the world.
Yep.
And proportionally speaking, nobody sends in those images. I'm thinking it's because everyone looks and they see, oh, there's totality, there's annularity. Oh, those images are really great. I'm not going to send in these partial pictures. Well, partial images are just as important. Just remember to include what equipment you're using, your location, whether that is exact geocoordinates or near a city. Time of taking the picture is helpful. Try to convert that to universal time. So I don't have to. If you put it in your local time, I'll need to convert it to universal, and that just causes a mess. And yes, it's take pictures of the partial, take pictures of the annularity. Use all of your normal solar equipment setups, and that should work very well.
Okay. I will link in the show notes a map showing the complete path across the United States, so anybody listening can see exactly where they should be if they want to see the complete annular phase of the sun. Yes.
And as much as I would like to give an exact time for the eclipse, it's local. The eclipse moves across the Earth, and it starts over in Oregon and migrates down and exits through Texas. So, and the difference in time there is quite a bit.
Yeah. Where are you going to travel to see this?
I'm going to get on the highway and head as far west as I can make it. I'm going to try to get towards Texas, but I might not make it that far. I'm at least going to get 80%.
Okay. Yeah, we got a group, and we're all going to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it's interesting because October 14th is also the middle of the Albuquerque Balloon Festival, hot air balloon festival. So that whole thing's going to be going on while there's balloons in the sky, which ought to make some kind of interesting photographs along the way.
Oh, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could get the balloons in the image with the solar filter on, but maybe during a partial, maybe you could silhouette a balloon over the partial.
Yeah. Have the balloon eclipse the sun.
Yes.
I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Of course. And as always, eclipses come in pairs, so there is a partial lunar eclipse a little while after. It's on October 28th, 29th.
Okay.
It's only a very slight partial lunar eclipse, and it covers all of Europe, Africa, and Asia.
Okay.
So if you're on that side of the world, there is a lunar eclipse to view also.
Okay. All right. Nice. So you have anything else on the annular eclipse you want to bring up?
Image the eclipse and have fun.
Sounds good. Now, early next year, we are going to have another eclipse I'm sure everybody has heard about. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. Everybody knows, or I hope everybody knows, that we're going to have a total solar eclipse on April 8th. And this eclipse it's going to be good. It's going to be very good. The duration for this one is 4 4 minutes 28 seconds at its maximum. So that's pretty decent for a total solar eclipse compared to back in 2017 when I had a minute 30 seconds.
Yeah.
To view it.
I think I had over 2 minutes in Oregon. Yeah.
Right. And 4.5 minutes nearly is that's a long time. It's a lot better.
But it goes really quick.
Yeah. Oh yes, it goes so quickly. That one starts out in the ocean, comes up through Mexico, through Texas, over Ohio towards Maine, and then exits over Newfoundland. So, so if there's anybody in Newfoundland, you can get a picture there.
There you go. Yeah, I know people that are going to be on a cruise ship in Mazatlan.
Oh, really?
For this cruise, for the eclipse too. Yeah, so that'll be interesting.
Well, I've heard of some pretty great results with cruise ships.
Yeah,
you can maneuver around the storms, and
they do have up to date weather.
Yes,
on cruise ships. Yeah, I'm going to be in Fredericksburg, Texas.
Texas, yes.
That's where I'm going to be in a campsite there. So, but I will be mobile. My truck will be gassed up if I need to move.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to make plans now. If you don't already have plans for these eclipses, you should make plans now or as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Hotels get booked up, and it's almost impossible to find someplace.
And expect to pay.
Yes, and expect to pay.
Yeah.
The sooner you get your place, the cheaper it'll be. But also understand the weather conditions of where you're going.
Right. Yeah, I'm getting nervous about Texas right now.
Everybody says Texas is dry. Don't worry about it. But clouds are clouds, and they'll go where they want. So.
That's right. And I remember I saw a weather satellite photograph of April 8th, 2023, and Texas was completely clouded over. So I'm like, okay, it's a year out, but still, it's.
I mean, throughout the center line in America, it's mostly around 60% clouds, which isn't great, but
yeah.
I mean, the best cloud cover is down in Texas, where it's down around 40 or 50% projected cloud cover. But, it's a roll of the dice there.
It is.
And
it could be great. It's
always a roll of the dice with eclipses.
Yeah.
And there's always that fear of getting stuck in gridlock for the eclipse. And,
well, I have a friend of mine who asked me where I was. He just asked me yesterday. I said, I'm going to be in Texas. Oh, and he rides a motorcycle. So he goes, I'll just do an iron butt. That's when you ride 1,000 miles in a day. I'll ride down there for the eclipse, crash at your RV, and then head back. I'm like, dude, the 2017 eclipse, after it was over, it took me 10 hours to go 100 miles. Oof. You're not going anywhere. The eclipse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even getting to the location is going to be a nightmare. I mean, roads are going to be nuts.
Yeah. For the 2017 eclipse, I was in pretty much the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And somehow there were hundreds of other people there.
Right.
Why there were people with me in the middle of nowhere, I don't know. I was in the only bed and breakfast. I don't know where they were staying.
Oh my!
But there were just all these people.
Yeah,
and that's just how it is. If you're out someplace in the middle of nowhere, imagine a gridlock of people to show up, and you won't be able to leave.
Right.
So have multiple ways out, have plans of where to go, and make sure you can set up your equipment quickly.
That's right.
And operate it quickly.
Yeah, I'm camping in a campsite in Fredericksburg. I'm going to be there for 5 days. So I'm not going anywhere before or after. I'm going to be hunkered down there. And it's right smack on the center line.
Right. And yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get together in a couple months and go into more depth of the 2024 total solar eclipse.
Yes.
But you got anything else you want to share before we end this?
Anything else? Well, we don't have very many more eclipses recently. These are the only two real eclipses we have over America for quite some time. There are going to be some partials here and there, but it's not going to be like this for a very long time. 2028 has an eclipse go over South America. I'm looking over my charts here, and we have some partials and things like that. But for the next practically 10 years, we don't have any other total solar eclipses. And if you want to look just at America, it's going to be a while. So make it count. Make sure you see these and spend time and enjoy them.
Yep, exactly. And take time away from the eyepiece.
Yes.
The first total solar eclipse I ever did, I was looking through my telescope the entire time. I never took a step back during totality. I never took a step back and looked around and looked at the horizon. And
it just feels different to look at it with your own eyes.
Oh, and it does. And that I made a point of that in 2017 to just take a step back. And I had a GoPro camera set up on top of my car, which took a whole sky image. So I filmed basically the entire eclipse on that. And it was pretty wild.
Right. Oh, and that's something else I should have talked about. If you do have clouds and if it's impossible to get out of the clouds, I thought of the idea, why not just take a wide field landscape video? Yeah. You could see the darkening of the clouds above, even if you can't see the sun in the eclipse. You could always try to make the most of it and take a nice landscape image. And
that's for the total solar eclipse.
Well, yeah, that is with the total solar eclipse, but the annular eclipse, I believe it does get somewhat dark enough. And with what you were saying with the strange colors, you might be able to get some interesting colors through the clouds.
That's true.
So even interesting cloud phenomena like that are worth viewing, and there's always something to look at.
That's very true.
Eclipse.
All right.
Yes.
Well, Keith, this has been fun. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast again.
Well, thank you, Tim, and it's always a pleasure coming back. I believe this is the 5th time I've been on the podcast.
Oh, wow. You're a regular.
I was counting, so.
You're catching up to Bob Lunsford.
Glad to be here, glad to be back, and look forward to the next one.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Well, thank you, Tim.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Observer's Notebook podcast. Again, I want to thank Keith Spring for coming on and give us an update on the annular eclipse in October. Please get out there and observe it, and observe safely. We upload a new episode of the Observer's Notebook on the 1st and 15th of every month. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, please give us a rating and a review. I really appreciate it. You can also listen to us now on Apple Radio, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, Spotify, and we also have our own YouTube channel you can listen to it on. You can help support the podcast by donating to it via Patreon. You can give up to $35 a month, where you receive 1 year's membership to the ALPO and producer credits on the podcast. And with that, I'd like to thank the producers of this podcast, Steve Siedentop and Michael Moyer, for their generous support. Thank you very much. The link for Patreon, as well as the link for the ALPO, is in the show notes. You can contact me via email at cometman@cometman.net or on Twitter at observersnbpod. Or should I call it on the X? I don't know. What should I call that? Anyway, until next time, I hope you always have clear and steady skies. Thanks for listening.